Hello, this is Jonathan. Good morning and welcome to Nycos Insider. Today's episode is another in the sequence called The 10, and today we will be talking about the 10 most influential cities of Nycos. Those of you who have not played role-play games probably don't have a clue about what Nycos even is, so the short version is that as a storyteller and games master, I have placed the adventures in a specific locale, a world, if you will, called Nycos. And in order to get an understanding on what's going on within that area, I determined that we need to introduce you to the 10 cities that have influenced the world the most over the time that Nycos has been around. So before we do that, let's go ahead and move to the map and hang on a second as we transfer that location. Alrighty, as you can see here, Nycos is a planet that's all mapped out, and I used a program called Hexographer, which is really cool to give the space and the different types of terrain that are involved there. And world such as Nycos has action, adventure, and to spare for everyone and any type of adventuring you want to do. As a setting, it is a fantasy roleplay world, and in that vein, the places and the things that you will run into will run the gamut from the absolutely mundane of raising cattle and farming fields and such, all the way up to wrangling gorgons and capturing dragons and rescuing unicorns and the like. So when we speak of the 10 cities of Nycos, we're going to be going literally globe hopping. We are not going to start in any one particular location. But in order for you to have a clear understanding of the places, let's go to, first of all, the farthest north of these cities. And it's actually on the very center of this ruined area in the northern part of the planet in a place called Concordia. Within the nation of Concordia is a city known simply as Consolation. And Consolation literally was built on the ruins of a great battle that was fought during the 7th iteration. In other words, at the end of the time before the Revening. You will hear certain terms that won't necessarily make any sense to you unless you've been involved with the story. Those terms we will go over in another version of the 10 here in a week or so. But within the period pre-Revening, the city of Consolation was constructed after a rather heated and extended battle between the others of the time, shall we say, and the dauntless heroes of the 7th iteration. And though the city has Although that area has fallen to ruins, nonetheless, the city of Constellation has been built fundamentally next to the ruins and is a repository of the written documentation and the knowledge base that was in Concordia at the time. Most haven't yet discovered it yet, but it is arguably one of the greatest resources of historical information of the pre-Revening era available to those of the current time frame. Just slightly south and far to the east of Constellation is the capital of Cryopathia. And what makes the capital of Cryopathia particularly fascinating is that it is built on and out of the permafrost ice. There's a sheet of ice fundamentally that covers the majority of the plains of Cryopathia, in certain places in depths up to 40 or 50 feet. And in these ice walls, specifically in a particular chasm, they built a city called Frege. And yes, it sounds just like it's spelled just like I sound, Freege, Frege. And it is influential in that the city has access to a lot of artifacts from the pre-Revening period, because the fields of Cryopathia were by and large the battlefields of the 7th iteration conclusion. The great battles of that era are covered in this sheet of ice, and therefore intrepid adventurers, in this case, mine through the ice, which doesn't sound like it'd be too difficult to do. I mean, you simply have to warm things up and melt the water. But there is a preternatural icing effect that occurs. So as you melt the water from one location, that water simply pools someplace else and refreezes. So it's a rather difficult and, in certain cases, quite harrowing effect, especially with the various cold creatures and those species of the other that have adapted well to it. So between Constellation and Frege, you have a place of great knowledge and a place of great historical value from a magical sense. Moving further south, there are literally dozens of nations that I could talk about here, but the next one I'm going to mention is going to be Elsadar, which is the capital of Eldrasar. Now, in these days, modern time, Eldrasar is the city name as well as the kingdom name. But in the past, Elsadar was a city name for the capital of Eldrasar. Now, Eldrasar is not as unified as it once was, and therefore the formal governance of Eldrasar has fallen back fundamentally to the city and its environs. And it's basically 2 or 3 points down the peninsula of Eldrasar, and the coast faces to the south. It's actually out here virtually on the point of the peninsula, which makes it a fairly close sail across the narrow water there. Or you could actually head across to, for example, the Swarthier Plains by crossing the Blackwater. But we'll deal more with that when we talk about the 10 geographic anomalies of Nycos. Now, Eldrasar is a port city. It is fundamentally the center of the universe, if you will, as creatures pass from the various continental positions to the others. Most of them will pass through Eldrasar. While it would seem that the Tween Sea, the narrow body of water running down the middle between the two continents there, would be an easy crossing, it is important to remember that the Tween Sea after dark, so to speak, is very difficult to navigate, as there are no stars in the sky. So astral navigation, astrological navigation, astronomical, none of that's possible. And therefore the Blackwater really is a very dangerous place to enter, because That passage has no markings, and there was a fated trip recently that set off across the Blackwater and never reached the other side. So great tragedy occurred there in some fashions. Nonetheless, Eldrasar as a trade port is very bustling and embraces just about every race, culture, religion. There are temples for example, all of the 10 precepts, the 10 constants or the 9 veils. Now I did happen to pass over. I need to mention just slightly north of that and across the narrows there, in the area known, or on the end of Mornglade, is a city known as Cauldron. Those of you that are familiar with the Wednesday stream, Cauldron Triumphant, it is set in this city upon a mountain that was a volcanic mountain at one point. Suffice it to say, there have been considerable changes made to not only the geography of Nycos, but also to the cultures and such like over time, so that Cauldron itself has become somewhat of a religious mecca, as there is a statue there created in the form of one of the first of the diva arrivals on Nycos. It's stylized after the form of Nadroma, although people say that the artifact fundamentally looks more like her current emissary, if you will, Ralgrim, the divine soul sorcerer who actually created the statue. But that's, of course, left to conjecture. But as a religious site, therefore, people are constantly traveling from the various veils, and there is quite a bit of interesting politics that develop as the various cultures sort of clash within its borders, within the boundaries of the city itself. Now, lost on the map someplace has yet to be discovered in the area between Almaria on the north and Trill on the south. There is a missing city. There's a legendary city known as Trellora. I said that wrong. Wow. Trantor. And Trantor was, in the pre-Revening time, a floating city held aloft by the magics of the very stones upon which it was built. Now, no one has seen it, or it has not been identified or located, but there are rumors that the ruins of Trantor carry some of the most powerful magical items of the pre-Revening period, and some even suggest that it might hold some of the secrets to the location or the existence of the great weapons of power. Now, most cultures aren't even aware of those great weapons of power. Nonetheless, the city of Trantor has these persistent rumors, because there are cultures such as the Trellorans, the Undren, the Primus elves and such, that actually do still hold those truths. So there is some rumor, at least, that the Eldrin are searching out Trantor to gather for themselves the collective wisdom and power of that ancient city. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4. The next city of note, it would be Babylos, which is the capital of Bailon over here on the right side of the map. Babylos is the largest trading city on the planet, in that it is the place wherein the most consumers exist. During the previous Revening period, those that had wealth ran for Babylos, because its city walls are said to be impenetrable by even time itself. For this reason, the towers of Babylos have been seen as resources and receptacles of great knowledge throughout time, specifically since the Revening. What that means is that those people have better understanding of what the occurrences were that triggered the Revening, and therefore it makes it a really useful place to visit. That's 5. So the next city I need to talk about would be over here on the other coast, far away from that one, and that is Tenerife. And Tenerife, if you will, is the analog to Babalos on the east. The city on the west, Tenerife, is the second greatest trade capital and is arguably the most innovative economic structure in the world. They've developed the fundamentals of insurance and protection rackets. They have established the ideas of unions and guilds to protect the workers. Well, in effect, therefore giving power to those that control those unions. And Tenerife also, which is in the northern end of Farthfall, at the end of the Farthfall frontal ridge there, is home to the largest air fleet planetside. In other words, there are a great number of airships, both those that are magically powered and those that are technologically powered, that operate out of Tenerife, and the towers of Tenerife is one of the most busy airways, if you will, in all of Nycos. The frontal range there is actually a great place for this, because that frontal range's elevation almost rivals the Grimhalt wall. That's the great white mountains you see in the center of the map. But Tenerife, being at its ultra-high elevations, some of the towers have allowed even lighter than aircraft to travel hundreds of miles inland, so that it's created a situation in the Farthfell that you would think would be one of the most profitable in the world. Now, unfortunately, there have been several great tragedies that have occurred in this coastal area, including in the pre-Revening period. Both Hammerfall and Candlefall occurred continentally. One of them farther north in the area that is currently marked Nyx on the map. There is absolutely nothing known of that region, and it's said to be a desolate area. The legend has it that a great curse was placed upon the Eldrin that live there, and that they have been obliterated from the face of Nycos, both now and forever. But of course, that yet remains to be seen. Next on our travel of the 10 cities, we're up to number 7, is the city of Homo Habilitatus, which is a grim city built on the Grimhalt wall. It's, if you look at the map, it's in the gap between the second series of White Mountains and the third, moving from north to south. And Homo Habilitatus, according to legend, is the greatest surface-built dwarf culture location in history, said to be able to house over 100,000 people, and built specifically to human, or what they call now mortal, qualifications. In other words, the rooms are human size, the doorways are human size and such. This was said to be a place for processing the human population before entering into the Grimhalt itself, as a way of preparing them for their new life under the protection of the Grim. Later historians will claim that it was actually a monstrous slaving camp where they were processing people for a life as a slave. But only those of the 6th iteration wherein it happened would know the specifics of it. Under the edict known as the Pact, which permeated time from that point forward, the human population was set to be protected by the Grimm and the Eldrin from the dangers that were coming, as the humans had, in the end of the fifth iteration, actually failed to accomplish anything in terms of protecting themselves. And the desolation was rather widespread, to the point where the human population fundamentally ceased to exist on the surface of the planet. With that as number 7, let's move on to number 8. And number 8 is going to be Penza, which is the capital of Barbas. And Barbas is the pirate nation across the sea on the other continent, south of Swarthir, and below the Lion's Mane. That's what this mountain range here is known as. In the middle continent, Barbas is an area where the 7 princes live. The area that they patrol or control, if you will, is all of the Tween Seas, specifically the non-Blackwater portions. And piracy is a big money maker, as there are plenty of people that will buy the stolen goods, both in Swarthir and in Myrmidon across the sea. So there are a great number of places where people can move the contraband from the piracy trade. Also, upon the open oceans, there are no truly fortified military forces to prevent the piracy, and so even privateers are known to work the shoals and take booty, take prizes. That was number 8. So number 9, we're going to go down here to the Barovian Empire, way down here on the south. And the Barovian Empire's capital city is known as Traverse. And Traverse is this small isthmus out here off of the coast of Barovia. And it acts as a point of change. Historically, there was supposed to be some great occurrence that happened at the edge of the mountains on the north end of Barovia. That did not happen, and instead there was a great battle that occurred at Transposition, where the humans stood against the dragon attack and fended off a group, if you will, a family of dragons that were wreaking havoc on the land for the Barovians' inability to protect them. But that story is perhaps for another time. Just know that the capital here has had many names, and that it will constantly serve as a salient in any conflict, being so close to the horn into the Tween Sea. That was number 8. Number 9, we will go ahead and point out, is not really a city at all, but a town, because it's played such a critical point in the story historically. A little place known as Banbury over here in the Valley of Fulcrum. It's along the edge of the Blackstone Ridge, a series of mountains that separate it from the inward valley, which is... my eyes are going here. But the Humbrol Valley. But the point is that the forces that influence Fulcrum have caused it to be as much a lever on culture as the Barovian capital city we spoke of just a moment ago. The difference here is that Banbury, being a small town and being favored by the heroes of the past, was basically left unfiltered, unharmed throughout the last days of the Revening. And the area to the south of it, the Whisper Mists, is the fundamental favorite hunting ground of the 7 pirate princes, sea princes. They tend to like to work this area because this is the closest crossover point from the west coast to the east coast through the mountains. Let's see. And then finally, the one city I wanted to mention last is way up here at the edge of the world. There is a city that's famed for the temple of Subject Zero. This area known as it's the edge of Corum, but it's actually a nation that was formerly known as Mantara and is now only a city-state of that name. And so Mantara is a meeting place and a great location for study, for it is literally on the edge of the greatest and most persistent known storm, known as the World's Edge Storm, that occupies not just one hex, but the entire range of hexes along the edge of World's Edge. That's the area where the waters meet the coastline, just north of Mantara. And so the city of Mantara has taken upon itself to be a repository of information on the storms, and as such has three great temples within it: a temple of the blue, a temple of the purple, and a temple of the white. All of which they can't stand each other, but nonetheless do share information as time goes by. This understanding of the cities of Nycos perhaps will take some time to digest. I think in the long terms, coming back to this video will become helpful for you to remember where else you might go and what other information you might be able to gather about this wonderful adventuring world known as Nycos. And for more information on how you can become involved with it, make sure you check out our Patreon. That's patreon.com/Nycos, Nycos, like the game world, and learn how you can become a part of it and even lay your claim to your own portion of this wonderful planet. This is Jonathan Albin, the Game Market Guru. Thank you for your participation.